Welcome back to Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Now we'll actually be finishing the Water World. They got a little bit overzealous last time, apparently.
Did somebody say Water World?
Are we sure we're not in part 10 again?
Can we look, Costner, call us, alright. We'll work for free. Or at least for gummy worms.
I work for nothing more or less than peach rings. Thank you. No, but
So anyway,
seriously,
how
I
many-
haven't had peach rings in ages. I'm hungry for them now.
How many worlds does this game have?
Usual amount, I think 8 or 7, I think 7 or 8.
Okay. I know that 8's the normal amount, but some games like try to switch it up. Like I know Yoshi always does 6 or something weird like that, so
Man,
Donkey Kong has never really been typical with its worlds.
well, Donkey Kong's also had such a strange and weird lineup of games that's never really been as consistent, is also the thing.
ugh. The camera zoomed in there, and we got a close look at the textures on the leafy walls, and wow, up close they're pretty gross.
It's probably more that they're only designed to look good from one very specific angle, is probably more
From
the
one
thing.
angle and distance, they're not meant to look good up close, but they did implement these close-up camera angles, so yeah. I mean, it's not
a little weird.
it's not as bad as Fire Emblem with some of its textures on the Switch, you know. But
Yeah, that game's visuals are weird. The battles look fine and actually look pretty good. It's just the Monastery has weird texture problems.
I was looking at some footage, and it's not that the battles look any better. It's just that you're usually seeing the battles from a set distance and angle.
Yeah.
And
Are you guys talking about the battles in terms of like when the enemies are fighting, or more?
When you actually go into the animations and all that.
Okay, yeah, because one thing about Fire Emblem, especially the sprite-based games, is that the animations when fighting are normally really, really impressive looking. Like the Fire Emblem GBA sprites, whenever you get a critical hit, I love those animations. Like especially like when the sword or spear wielders like do a bunch of flippy shit with the swords, and it's like, oh man, it gets you really psyched up for the crit. And in games like Awakening, like the cut in with the face and the quote is kind of the same sort of feeling, but it's just not the same as just watching the sprite go like whoosh, 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 and then hearing the crit sound
yeah,
and whatnot.
like I was actually pretty impressed the first time I played one of the sprite-based games, because they had like small, not very detailed sprites, but they did some really cool animation stuff with them. It's kind of like the opposite priority from what Shining Force did on the Genesis, where they had these really detailed battle sprites for when attacks were happening, but they'd have like 3 frames of animation. So, yeah.
You see, the very old Fire Emblem games, I haven't really seen much of them in practice.
The NES ones aren't terribly great.
Well, that's just probably mostly just because it's an NES game, I would have to imagine. Are the animations similar to that for the GBA games for the SNES ones, or?
Relatively similar.
Okay, yeah, so the fluidity was probably always more on their mind than pure, detail
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, it's but back to Three Houses, which is the one I was actually talking about. The texture quality in places is not great, and it's not great in the battles either. But you're not swinging the camera to get a close look at a fruit basket in battle, are you? So they really should have done more with the Monastery in terms of texture work, I think.
I mean, I feel like the 3D Fire Emblems have never really made the graphics a huge priority, except for when it's really important, like rubbing your waifu's face. Then they pull out all the stops and make special models. For it and
Could
everything.
someone please just
Why?
erase Hatsune Miku Fire Emblem from existence, please?
Sorry, fate still exists.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just people were talking about Skinship and stuff like, why it shouldn't have been erased from the game. I guess they just on principle or whatever. But you know, if you want to experience that game, all you need to do is play Hatsune Miku on PS3 because it's the same fucking shit. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of people get a lot out of the romance and roleplay in Fire Emblem, and I do too. I've always kind of felt that and you know what? I actually kind of got the same vibes from the what's it called when you're like having tea parties and stuff. From what I've seen of Three Houses, like I've always
here's the thing. In Three Houses, like the social aspects, which are vaguely like Persona-ish and whatever, those make sense in the context of what Fire Emblem was already doing with its social aspects. Skinshipping, not so much. That's just them trying to do touchscreen stuff because they have a touchscreen.
Fire Emblem Pokemon me.
That's honestly exactly what it felt like. It's like, okay, rub your partner's face, blow on them. That's the weirdest one.
Feed them a puffin!
No, blow it. You literally have to like. They come out of the shower and oh, they're so steamy. Blow into the 3DS mic and blow the steam off of them. It's like what? Okay.
What is the Fire Emblem fan base?
Are we playing Fire
confused- Emblem?
Or are we playing
Or-
motherfucking Conception here? Come on.
You're mostly Nathan. That mostly just refers to face. The rest are totally fine.
Yeah, a lot of the Fire Emblem fan base like is split a lot. Like there's a lot of people who are like classic fans or bust, and then there's a lot of people who are mostly here for the newer ones and are less weirded out by that kind of thing. You know, like I feel like everybody agrees that Fates went too far with that, but a lot of people are a-okay with them like having social links or whatever they call them.
Oh, I'm a-okay with it too because like we've had these connections between your characters for a long time, and it's a major element of the story because like okay, you don't really have much outside of battle to do in Fire Emblem, not even to the extent that like Shining Force let you walk around in towns or whatever. Although Three Houses has finally added that. That's nice, thank you. But like there's a way to do additional stuff with the concept that feels natural, and then there's a way to do additional stuff with the concept that doesn't. And this didn't. So
Yeah, I did appreciate Awakening finally making the social stuff feel important enough because there was always like this limit to how many supports you could get with certain characters and whatnot, which felt weird. And when Awakening lifted that restriction, it finally made everything click for me because one of my biggest issues with Fire Emblem is that since the stories are written with the element that anybody can die, you know, that means that only the 3 or 4 main characters who, you know, if they die, you know, you get an instant game over, are allowed to be in cutscenes. And since you're not limited on support conversations anymore, that means that these characters just don't suddenly disappear as soon as they're
not all of the time would the characters who died be out of cutscenes though. Like I distinctly remember like in a few of like the GameCube Wii games. So I'm not sure which one
Yeah,
I'm thinking of. Radiant Dawn maybe.
The Tellius games. There were a few plot important characters you could lose, but they would be critically injured and couldn't be on the battlefield.
Yeah, but they would still be around and they'd still have dialogue. So
Yep. It only ever felt like there were like 3 or 4 characters tops that they did that with, though. So it's like, you know,
sadly, that's the case with every Fire Emblem game.
yeah, but it's just, you know, the supports make it so that those characters don't just disappear. Because if in, like, say, Fire Emblem...
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's just the nature of how the games work.
yeah.
Because in, like, Fire Emblem 7, for example, like, if Florina, after, like, her first cutscene or whatever, Florina doesn't do anything anymore. So once you run out of supports for her, it's just like, well, she's only a unit now. She stops being a person. And so I'm glad that they changed. I'm glad that they changed that. It was what finally made the games click for me. Personally, I mean, Awakening.
Dixie.
Wait, what happened to her?
I lost her right before the barrel.
Oh,
It's a good thing you're playing on Phoenix mode.
you just
And
you just hear that music start playing. Dixie, no, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Donkey Kong. I've failed you, and then she fades into existence.
In the Shining Force games, they don't like have permanent death, but you do have to sort of go to a church, Dragon Quest style, and pay to revive your dead characters. So that's a thing.
And I'm guessing that there's not churches every map or anything like that.
There's a church in pretty much every town, 'cause they're also your save points. It was very Dragon Quest.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Shining in the Darkness was basically Dragon Quest with first-person labyrinth dungeons. So.
All right. Yeah. I mean, a thing I do appreciate about Fire Emblem is that since each character can die, you don't use RTS distraction techniques. Like you're just actively encouraged not to have certain units be pawns that you put there just to die, or whatever, which is often a very good strategy in other strategy games.
Yeah.
So, which makes the games feel different from other strategy fare, which I also appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, people are probably playing the games like that now, though.
Yeah, that's kind of what casual mode kind of. Casual mode kind of lets you do that, but
Like, I mean, the mode where you get your characters back after if they die after
casual mode.
Yeah, because I mean, like, that's just a more forgiving version, I think. Like, you can kind of do that, but it's not really, you're still punished by not having that unit for the rest of the fight if they die.
It's one of those. I think it worked best in Awakening because the game was hard enough to warrant that being a legitimate punishment.
Yeah,
Fates and I haven't played hard mode on Three Houses, but normal on Three Houses feels a little too easy to kind of get away with that.
because Three Houses has the turn back time thingy from Echoes, right?
Yeah.
Does having that just make it feel less difficult, or did he just not have to use that at all?
I just didn't use it.
Okay.
I mean, okay, I used it a couple times when I just got RNG screwed.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a 90% chance of hitting. Oh, you miss on the last hit. That would have killed them, and then they kill you. It's like.
Oh yeah, that's just Fire Emblem bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just like, that did they go back to the old way that RNG worked with Three Houses, or the more modern way? Because I know that they did the RNG a different way for Echoes.
It's back to how it used to be.
Okay, good, because Echoes had technically more accurate RNG, but that made me more frustrated because a 70% hit chance doesn't actually only hits about 70% of the time, versus in the way that they do the RNG in the more modern games, if you have anything above like 85, you'll pretty much always hit, because of like the double check or whatever it's called. I forget how the math specifically works, but having the RNG actually feel like what it's supposed to be is just frustrating because I want my stat defying good odds, goddammit.
You probably would find a lot of frustration in like older CRPGs like Baldur's Gate or Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where everything is based on a literal dice roll.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, when you see 90% hit chance, it's like, oh yeah, that'll definitely hit, even though 1 out of 10 is more chances than you'd kind of expect to miss. So the way that Fire Emblem does it, where due to the math, 90% or more, like, literally is almost always a hit. So you'll hit it more often than 9 out of 10 times. Oh, wait, so is this whole boss on a time limit because you're underwater?
No, it gives you bubbles.
Okay.
Again, I think it's really stupid that somehow they lost their ability to breathe infinitely underwater.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
They noticed they had lungs? Question mark?
It's like Krillin realizing in the middle of a fight that he has a nose. That he has no nose, rather.
How do you just suddenly forget that you don't have a sense of smell? Or, like...
I mean, I do it all the time.
I mean, I guess that's true, but, like, how did he smell before that without his nose?
Maybe he didn't.
But he was like, he couldn't fight Bacterion or whatever his name was because he was too grossed out by the smell. So how did he smell it before that when he didn't have a nose to begin with?
Maybe he could taste the air?
Yeah.
That actually
mean-
makes a good amount of sense.
I mean, that's kind of what I do.
The tournament arc in the training with Krillin was the point in the first Dragon Ball where I really started to, like, really enjoy reading it. Like the first arc is all right in a lot of ways, but
It's still very Toriyama.
yeah. But I feel like the writing just gets a lot better once you do the stuff with Krillin and Master Roshi and whatnot. It's more fun to me, and there's less. The jokes just get better as well, which helps a lot.
Like I said, it stops being very Toriyama. I mean, it still kind of is, but
Well, I mean, it's a better version of him. Like, he's refined and whatnot.
it's not her, it's a girl, boobies.
Yeah. Also, a lot of those things are a little bit weird now because Bulma's only supposed to be like 15 in that first arc, which makes some of it a little skeevy by my standards today, but, you know.
Yeah.
Japan has always been a bit weird about that kind of thing. Like, they're not exactly lacking self-awareness, but I don't know. It's hard to describe. And Donkey Kong is dead.
This
Nope,
boss
he's not.
looks really boring.
It is really boring.
Okay.
I just
Although-
realized the stage spikes are the little like missile things from Lurch's fight in 3.
And
Huh.
they're just kind of here.
Was there a mid-boss checkpoint?
No, there are no checkpoints in any of the bosses.
You just kind of have to do them in one shot.
Yeah. It's
Well, I
really
mean, he's jumped straight to doing this.
because I cut.
Oh, did ya?
Editing.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the
I
cut.
know it's a rare shot, a rare, scene.
You
but-
say that literally every time.
I know. Well, until you get consistent at it, we're gonna.
I
make fun
am
of it.
I am consistent at it. You just haven't been giving me my credit.
Yeah, but running jokes are funny. We have to consistently say that John is bad at Storm Eagle, otherwise, how
And
will
you have
people
no
remember?
shinies.
Yeah, how will people remember that John did bad on Storm Eagle once 10 years ago, or how I didn't have many shinies like 4 years ago, but have since found several? Like me mentioning, oh yeah, I found like a good 10 plus shinies since we made that Pokemon Gen 2 video. That doesn't keep up the running joke, which makes it terrible, and we should never mention it.
Exactly.
So,
Boop.
how is this guy spitting out other fish?
Yeah.
They were his
Video game.
lunch, maybe?
Because
I don't
he's
know.
big.
You see, he doesn't even look any different in that beat-up picture. It just looks like, he was sneezing mid taking his senior picture, and they just used it.
He just looks mildly inconvenienced.
It's just like, wait, no, sorry, I sneezed, and they were running low on time, and just they only had time for one shot.
And that's all he gets.
Actually, that's probably what the Donkey Kong DMV is like. I mean, you have to get your license to drive
the-
go-karts somehow.
The DDMV, the Donkey Department of Moving Vehicles.